Hello, Paulso. Welcome to Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera Student Edition. My name is Vicky Rosas, and today we are speaking with Mr. Frank Reyes, who happens to be a registered nurse. I'm currently a student at EPCC, and I am getting my prereqs for nursing. Frank Reyes is a registered nurse who is currently working in the Cardiology Department at Del Sol Medical Center. He is a U.S. Airforce and U.S. Army veteran with medic and nursing experience. In 2008, he began his nursing journey by graduating from the Texas Women's University. He then proceeded to re-enlist in the military, giving him the opportunity to work as a nurse in med-surg, and that was only the beginning of his career. Throughout the years, he has gained experience in various settings such as med-surg, telemetry, ER, and cardiology. Welcome.
Welcome, Vicky. Thank you for having me in your program. I appreciate that.
Awesome. So I am going to start my very first question. Why did you choose nursing as a career?
I chose nursing as a career, I think, because deep inside me, I've always had this caring persona for, individuals. Anything that happened to our family, I was probably the first one to initiate a comforting hand or a comforting voice. So that led me easily into going into as a medic in the Air Force. So after that, I realized that I had a knack, a niche, for taking care of people that really needed somebody that was not only going to take care of their medical needs, but also their emotional needs. I was very empathetic. And so that led me into the progression of nursing as the years went on.
Perfect. Which leads me to ask, everything that you stated, would you state that means to be a nurse, or what would you identify as? What does it mean to be a nurse? What type of qualities should someone who's going to go into that field have?
I believe it definitely has to have a foundation in how you were brought up, for the most part. Obviously, our culture as Hispanics, we're very emotional and we're very caring. The unity of our culture lends itself to nursing. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And there's a lot of cultures with similar, backgrounds. But as you grow into, adulthood, you notice that you will either lean towards either working with a lot of things or working with people. And I noticed that it was very easy for me to dialogue with people and make them feel comfortable. So that lends itself for healing, so that is something that you look for in a nurse, and are they organized? That's very important in this field. And time management is definitely, you have to have time management. So those are some of the things that I would look for, in so letting somebody know that if you're going into nursing, see if you have these qualities.
Perfect. I am going to touch base on something you mentioned. You mentioned healing. So what does it mean to heal for you? What is healing?
I think healing also, again, is very cultural, which is how a lot of careers develop. They develop from a family unit. So healing in the Hispanic culture is, did we take care of the person, the whole person? For example, somebody fell and scraped themselves, or were in an accident. You don't just take care of, the wound. You take care of their emotional needs, psychological needs. All these things are very important. And you see that with moms taking care of their children. So again, it lends itself to nursing. So to me, healing is taking care of not only the wound, not only the disease, not only the problem, but also looking at the root cause, what happened. Were there emotional needs that were never met that you need to actually, look into? Touch is very important. And so when I'm with patients, touching their hand is very important. To respond very well to that because it's a human touch. I think it's innate in us. So that's also something to look for, in a future nurse.
Great advice.
Thank you.
What was your most rewarding experience as an Army nurse?
Oh my goodness. That one is even emotional to this day. taking care of some of the veterans or the young soldiers that came back from Afghanistan and Iraq. So you'd be taking care of them and getting them ready for their day. You want to put them in their wheelchair so they can go about their business. So as you're trying to help them to get into the wheelchair, you're told by them, "I got this, sir. I got this." And you're going, "What do you mean you got this?" Their motivation, their drive, to get into the wheelchair with no limbs because of the explosion that they experienced, in the field, in the war field, was remarkable to watch. Their willingness to live was just amazing to me. And so that will never leave my mind or my heart.
That does stir up some emotions because that's very common with veterans. Some come back extremely wounded, and I commend the ones that actually want to continue succeeding. There's some that just stay in a place where they don't want to continue going. So that's awesome. I'm glad you were part of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Alrighty. Question number 3. What adversities or challenges have you overcome as a healthcare professional in your field? How was COVID? Because you have been in the field for 15 years. How was your experience with COVID? So before COVID and during COVID, how were you nurses doing in this transition?
During this pandemic, it was interesting to see the dynamics of how everybody came together. And even though we didn't have enough nurses, nurses were brought in from Florida, from North Carolina, to meet the need of the demand of the people that were sick or getting sick. So that was interesting to see for the first time outside of the military setting, because obviously in the military you unite as an army. And so to see it in the civilian world was, fantastic. So that was one of the things that I noticed that was very similar to the military, but I think very profound because it told the world that we can come together and we can succeed in making the world a better place. So it was a challenge, a lot of deaths. But in spite of everything, I think we came out ahead.
Yes, we have. What do you love most about your current job at Del Sol?
Oh, the heart is an amazing organ. And so I love the fact that you get to learn everything about the heart. And it's so rewarding, to see that people have an option, even at 90 years old. We have pacers now that are the size of a capsule that will allow people to live another, 5 or 10 years. So to see that, in people that love life and that they have an option is a wonderful thing. Working with people that have heart issues is interesting because it's almost, what would be the word? Amazing to watch because they have a tenderness and a caring about everything that happens around them because of the heart. And so they're more sensitive to people. They're more compassionate. Their feelings are more out on their sleeve. They wear their heart on their sleeve. And so, so that's kind of interesting to watch how people can be very transparent in this field. And so it's very rewarding to see not only the physical heart, but the spiritual and in part of them. So it's very rewarding.
Awesome. Then I know I have question number 5, and for that question, I wrote down, what advice would you give to new grad nurses or an individual who is pursuing a career in the medical field? You sort of touched base on that earlier, but how about, can we focus more on nursing students? Like, what was your dynamic during school? I know that there's a lot of pressure for college students to keep up with their jobs, their school, and obviously what they have going on at home. How would you tell a student, hey, what advice would you give them? Like, hey, it's okay, you're gonna overcome it. Just push through. Don't be discouraged.
I think I would definitely advise them to focus on the school. I know we all have to work or, need to work, but if you can, and if the family comes together, definitely go to school without working, because you'll need all of your time. And some of the things that we weren't told while going through school is that you have to put in the time that nobody ever thinks about. For example, after you leave the clinicals, it's a good idea to go back and work with the nurses, outside of the clinical setting that the teachers have, because you need to understand why is it that they're writing what they're writing. When you're there and they're working and learning from them, they're on work mode and they're on student, you're a student mode. And so they feel like they have to rush you through and give you all the pointers that are necessary to make sure you become a good nurse. But if you come back later, like later in the evening when things are calm, then they feel more relaxed. So they're able to explain, why did I write what I wrote in my notes? And those were some of the things that I wish would have happened to me, because you can see all these notes being written down and it makes sense because you already went through the entire, curriculum. But you don't know exactly what does it mean? Why did you write it that way? Once you see their explanation, then it makes it easy to write notes. And that's something, there's no course for that in nursing, at least when I went through. There was no course in, I wrote what I wrote because of this reason. And this is what I was trying to get across when I wrote it. And so it's interesting that we focus in school on making sure that we take that English class and that we write a very nice English paper. But unfortunately, when it gets to nursing, we don't ask the questions of, why did I write what I wrote? Right. And what was it that I was trying to convey when I wrote it? And so I think that needs to be either a course or something where you sit down with, with your nurses that are teaching you and ask that question, because it makes a big difference. So that's what I would change if I could.
Right. Now that you touched based on that, it reminds me of my previous work experience. I was a medical assistant at a correctional facility, and I know that there were some occasions where we would have student nurses come to jail. It exposed them to a lot, but it also would discourage a few. But I did realize the importance of charting there, because it is a world where you have to document everything, not just for your sake, but for the inmates and then also the jail. So I agree. I think maybe writing a few more things might eventually help in the long run. Which brings me to this question. How long did it take you to fall in love with where you're working in that department? Because I know that it takes a while for you to find where you're comfortable. I can say that from experience. I know I've worked pediatrics as a medical assistant and then adult family, but I love being in the correctional facility. Where do you love it? What do you love?
Again, I think that our culture has a lot to do with it. And when I went into the cardiology department, I noticed again that transparency with patients. And how they were transparent in telling me everything about their lives. Opening up everything that had happened to them. So it was very easy for me to fall in love with this career field because it was very much like home. It reminded me of, how easy it is to go home and hear your grandparents tell you everything about your past, and here you're taking care of people that are about that age. So it's very warm, to walk into work. And so that's, it was probably within a month or two, I knew that I was in the right place, and this is where I would actually park my career.
Awesome. Great. Anything else you would like to share to me or just anyone in general that's listening? What's an advice you would want them to carry?
Well, Vicky, you brought a very good point out. When you were talking about documentation, I think that sometimes we tend to not look at the whole picture because we only focus on what's the problem. But even the little things are very important. How the patient reacted. What did they say when you were giving them a medication?
Right.
A lot of times they're telling us something that is going to happen in the future, and so this is why most hospitals have a suicide, a portion of when you're taking the initial assessment, because people will give clues, about what's going on in their lives, how desperate they are. And so I think that you hit the nail on the head when you have to document everything that happened, everything they said, even their gestures are very important because they are giving clues. And in the right hands, a doctor will see that and go, I'm glad you wrote that because I think this person is in danger. So very good point. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Reyes. We definitely had so much insight and wisdom from you. This has been Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera Student Edition. My name is Vicky Rosas. Please join us next time.